Yes, yes, Sir Hairless here. The Prayer. This one seems to be a Pentatonix favourite, at least if the number of requests I've received for it is anything to go by. Now seems like a good time for me to do it as well, because I've recently done another cover version of this song. That was Marcelito Pomoy, where he actually sings both parts, the male and the female. So that was pretty remarkable. And I'm in the mood for another incredible cover of this song. Pentatonix, I'd say they're usually a safe bet if that's what you're after. I don't think I really need to say much more. It's a famous song. We know how inventive and creative and genius Pentatonix are when it comes to these a cappella arrangements. They released this video in 2021. I'm told by many of you that it's amazing. So without further ado, let's get straight into it.
I pray you'll be alright and watch us where we go and help us to be wise in times when we don't know.
Oh, Mitch, goosebumps.
Let this be when we lose our way.
Lovely line from Scott
Lead us
there.
to a place, guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be safe.
La luce che tu dai.
Scott taking over there. Yeah, it's a nice arrangement. I mean, we're 1.5 minutes in. It's definitely got some really interesting things in there. It's such a full sound. It's studio produced. Great video as well, as we can see. Very much in the Christmas spirit. I believe they released this as a Christmas one. I'm releasing this in the summer, but a lot of you do ask for a Christmas in summer, so I hope this counts. I'll touch on this afterwards. Suspensions play a huge part in this one, and there are a lot of fun lines. I'm sure I'll touch on them later. One that stood out to me was Kevin's little dum, dum.
When we lose.
But the way the arrangement is done is I would use the word good because it's really quite difficult to pick apart who is singing what, especially with the introduction. Is Scott singing the lowest part? Is it Matt? We've got Kevin, who is so versatile. I know a lot of you say it's quite difficult to hear him, and in this one especially so. But like I just showed with that dum, dum, high up in his head voice, but earlier on I think he was singing what I would call a tenor part, which goes into falsetto. Anyway, let's carry on for now. Keen to hear the rest of this. I might do one more short pause, but I think we'll do a deeper dive at the end.
Lead us to a place,
Guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be safe.
a world where pain and sorrow will be ended, and every heart that's broken will be mended, and we'll remember we're all God's children, reaching out to touch Him, reaching to the
What a full sound. What a full sound. A lot of it, I think, well, not a lot of it, but one part I'd like to briefly mention is Matt's part at the bottom, very understated, and a lot of the time he just has a really long sustained note. You might think that that would not contribute to the fullness of a sound, but like I so often say, being at the bottom there, this harmonic foundation, and as long as he's solid down there, which he is, working nicely with Kevin coming in on the strong beats at the beginning of the bars, then it really allows the upper parts to do what they're doing here. Another reason the sound is so full is because it's more than 5 parts. Not all of it. The introduction, I think, was 5 parts, and maybe I'll transcribe that later on. But to have such a full sound like this, yeah, it's more than 5 parts. I know there'll be someone commenting, no, it has to be 5 parts. So just to show you, from where we carried on, there was a good example. I mentioned earlier, suspensions are so prevalent in this, and here we get a suspension. The notes, that's the line. The first 2 notes are the suspension. And then it drops down to that 3rd note. So to have that in there, that would either be Kirsty, most likely, or it could be Mitch, or anyone else in their head voice. But what do we have going on underneath? Well, Mitch is singing. And Kirsty has this lovely, powerful line that she's kind of belting. Really nicely coming through the texture there. And all the other parts are singing. Scott's singing, Matt is on the bass, Kevin's doing the beatbox. There are other parts there as well. So this shows us that we are hearing more than 5 parts, which is fine. I feel I sometimes need to defend myself because there are always comments saying that when I mention things like this, it's as if I'm trying to out Pentatonix. That's not the case. I love Pentatonix. They're incredible. And if you're putting out a studio version of a performance, I think you should do everything you can to make sure it's the best possible sound. In this case, they want a full sound. There are so many moving parts. We can hear them interchanging, passing on these runs to each other. You need more than 5 parts to really create a full sound. Also, there are many layerings. So the introduction, for example, which I think is 5 parts. We're hearing a lot more than 5 voices. And many of you have let me know in the comments that they are open about this. It's called layering, which just gives this effect of a chorus, you know, like a choir, a huge sound. And it works really well, as we can see here. All right, well, let's carry on until the end and then we'll take a deeper dive afterwards. If you want to explore some more of this song with me, by the way, the video linked in the pinned comment down below on my Patreon, that also includes a live performance of this and Pentatonix's very own behind the scenes video they made on it.
You might have to tone it down. Some look a little crazy.
I've not seen them yet, but I will be watching them after this reaction. So if you want to see that, head on over to the link. I've done a similar thing with many other Pentatonix videos at the time of recording, such as The Sound of Silence, Oh Holy Night, Daft Punk, Hallelujah. So you'll be able to see all of them as well.
Just like every child
needs to find a place, guide us with your grace, give us faith so we'll be saved. Needs to find a place, guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be saved.
Wow. What a lovely way to end. The fullness of the penultimate chord. So many parts there. We can hear lines such as this 4-note falling motif is a common theme throughout the song. Coming through the middle, we have nice dissonance, clashes in their growing sound. Kevin moving up against that falling. Ooh. The bass sustained, Mitch and Scott. Yeah, oh. And then a reduction. Mitch convicted in that note of his. All the way through. Kirsty at the top. On that F up there, and the key of this is F. One thing I love about this is how they managed to maintain the power, the strength of the sound. There was a moment earlier where it was like a climax moment. That was where we did our second pause, actually, because I just thought that there would be a huge reduction in sound, but no, they've continued going. There's a slight shift, but it's so smooth. The reason, again, is because of the number of different parts we're hearing. We have Kirsty and Mitch really leading the power here, but they're also singing in the background. Quieter parts, obviously sung very powerfully, it's touched up in the studio.
We hope it's so will find. We hope it's so.
Kirsty's powerful part in the background there. And then sustaining, allowing her to also sing a solo, as well as Mitch doing a similar thing. So yeah, I think it's a really smart choice by them to go ahead with doing more than 5 parts for this arrangement. In a way, we can think of it as the 5 of them, and then an additional 2 or 3 parts above, which are the solo lines. So they really get the best of both worlds. All right. That was really nice. We'll go back through. I'll just pick out some of the more interesting things. Before going to the introduction, let's just start with Mitch's solo. I mean, I just don't feel I really need to talk about this. He is clearly the center point of this song. It suited so well for him, perfectly in his range. That lovely hybrid voice of his that I always say is just so unique. As a first-time listener with your eyes shut, you really could not tell if this is an adult male or a younger female or an adult female.
I pray you'll be alright.
The air he's using at the start of the phrase, then going into a fuller sound at the end of the phrase, but with such a rich, controlled vibrato.
And watch us where we go.
And the swooning in the backing parts, which are kind of crossing over each other like that. Very, very clever. Matt, as I mentioned earlier, his role here especially is just this kind of long, sustained note, changing as the harmony, as the chords change.
And help us to be wise.
You hear the bass part is not really that low, actually. But then if we move a bit further on,
When we lose our way.
still not really low. It teases us by going to there, but it moves back up. Only then when we move later on to the clearly changed next section.
La luce che tu dai.
Now we have the lower bass. It works well because Scott has come in with his melody, this baritone melody, lower down. So it's almost like the floodgates have opened up for the bass to now come through. That said, the introduction, we did get low bass, but I'm kind of treating the introduction as its own little separate section. Bum, bum. Falling bass. Down to this bottom F. That's one note above a bottom E, which is your typical lowest note of a choral bass. Lovely suspension at the end there. And our chord is F. And the suspension we're hearing. Really nice introduction all round. I do think it is 5-part, but we do still have the layering for a fuller sound. Really nicely arranged. You know what? Cue Sir Hairless from the future. I'm going to transcribe this introduction and talk a little bit about it. Okay, future Sir Hairless here. I've just filmed a reaction and I've spent a little bit of time transcribing the introduction. I really like the introduction. It sounds simple. I can assure you it isn't. And especially because of the layering we're hearing, as in there are a lot more than just 5 single voices that we're hearing. It's really actually quite tough to hear the individual parts. It sounds like I'm trying to pick apart a full choir, especially the lower parts. Anyway, each part in itself is actually fairly simple. Let's listen to just Kevin's part, for example. This part alone shows the basis of the structure here, a mix of long notes and shorter notes, and these shorter notes have this falling motif that we hear throughout the song. Now let's listen with 3 of the parts, so we'll listen to Kevin and Matt and Mitch. And now let's add in Scott and Kirsty, so we have the full 5 part. To show how these fairly simple parts at an individual level create such a full and rich sound, and this really is the art of arranging, let's look at a color-coded version. So I've added in these colors, and the purpose really is to highlight the relationship between the different parts, the different voices. Everything in green are the shorter notes. The red notes are the longer notes that we hear from everyone at the end, but you can see them dotted around before, such as here. So look at who is singing the longer notes at the same time. Blue notes are 2 people singing the same rhythms as each other at the same time that don't fall into the green or the red categories. Purple is like a musical idea, this falling motif that's being handed over to another part. And orange is also like that. It's this similar idea handed over. So let's listen once more, and hopefully the colors will help a little bit to see who's singing the same rhythms as each other at any given moment, or a similar musical idea, or passing over a musical idea, that kind of thing. A cappella arrangements really are all about the relationships between the parts. If you enjoy these videos or find them helpful, please consider supporting me. Patreon has a bunch of exclusive benefits, behind the scenes videos, additional reaction content, Q&A videos, and more. For a one-time donation, you can donate me a hot chocolate at the Buy Me a Coffee link, or become a YouTube member for these groovy emojis and membership badges. And a huge thank you to these lovely people on the screen now. All right, let's skip ahead to Scott's entry. Baritone Scott. This is really nice. We know that we do like to see him move up into the tenor ranges, even though I would definitely say he is a natural baritone. We've also heard Scott bass a number of times. His range is incredible, but very well suited for this. And because of that natural baritone sound, it really helps contrast against Mitch.
La luce che tu dai
I pray we'll find your love.
nel cuore resterà.
We've spoken already about the additional higher line there with that suspension, allowing for Kirsty with her powerful belty sound to provide a nice backing part. The beats now coming in. We've moved from singing Kevin to percussion Kevin, and the arrangement is still just very flowing, like we get in the introduction with those falling motifs of 4 notes at a time. I trust future Sir Hairless would have pointed that out with the transcription that I'm going to do. And these shorter notes have this falling motif that we hear throughout the song, and a huge contributing factor too to this full sound. It's basically a full sound for the whole thing. So I want to just really listen to the backing parts and hear how sustained they are. There's so much effort almost that's going into keeping them prolonged with these long notes. Very different to some other arrangements we've seen by Pentatonix, where things are very rhythmic.
A ricordarci
When the
che
stars go out each night.
l'eterna
And having these long sustained notes, whilst they might seem much simpler than going do, 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 all over the place, they actually really help with creating nice chords, what I would call juicy chords. So let me just play a bit and let's pick out what we're hearing in the background.
When the stars
At the top. And then Kirsty is doing this, arriving on F, our root note, which is also doubled in the bass. But then Scott's melody,
ricordarci che
he's ending here, kind of throwing a spanner in the works. At this particular moment of this particular arrangement, that's kind of the core, the skeleton of the harmony, but there are also other parts moving around it which are changing it temporarily, and this happens throughout this arrangement everywhere. We could stop it every 2 seconds and point out something new. Similar things are just happening everywhere. Suspensions, like I said, being a prominent feature. I'll probably sound like a broken record, but the main things here are the fullness of sound, partly or mostly due to these long sustained notes that we're getting in combination with moving parts. Nothing too overcomplicated. Quite often it's this falling motif in a scale fashion. And we were introduced to that immediately in the introduction. I hope future Sir Hairless would have already showed you that in the transcription he has done, or that I am going to do. We're entering some sort of time paradox now. The overall effect of this is the enrichment of harmony. Also, something I hope future Sir Hairless would have mentioned in the transcription section is how each part by itself is not overly complicated, but it's how they work and weave and interlink with each other that is the beauty of it. The art of arranging. Let's move forward a little bit. And this part we're about to hear is now obviously reduced. It seems a bit quieter, a bit softer. Let's think about why that is.
Lead us to a place.
Guide us with your grace.
It's the vowel sounds of the backing parts. Everything now is an ooh sound, whereas before, especially in the more powerful backing parts we've pointed out, such as Kirsty, who's at the top, so is usually the easiest to hear, it's often an ah sound. Ah to ooh. Softer. Interestingly, in the introduction, we get a mixture of these oohs for the longer notes and ahs in the shorter la 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 las. It's almost like they were foreshadowing or showing us a blueprint of what we might expect with the rest of the arrangement or some of the ideas that will be coming back. After this section comes another new section, which is the first real moment of homophony, where they're all singing the same words at the same time in the same rhythms as each other.
A world where pain and sorrow will be ended, and every heart.
Of course, though, in the background, we can still hear additional parts. Kirsty opened up that section with the backing part. Just then, we've heard, I guess, Scott, could be Kevin. Listen out for that. I'll try and point it out with my fingers.
And every heart that's broken will be mended.
Kevin as well, singing along with the lyrics homophonically. It's this unifying moment, really. They now all have words, but they have not abandoned this interweaving, flowy idea that we've heard previously in the song. It's still there, just in the background. Even more so because it's that same motif. We heard it in the introduction, we hear it in the background everywhere. So having these repeated ideas, these repeated motifs, definitely, at least in my opinion, really adds to the comfort we feel. Perhaps subconsciously we are familiar with it. We think, oh, we have this falling line. I heard Kirsty doing that earlier on, just higher up, or I heard Mitch doing it in the melody or in the background. And this is something Pentatonix just does so well, using similar musical ideas within the overall framework that is the overall arrangement, but making the arrangement not sound samey, not sound boring, a clear idea of progression throughout. What does this progress to right after this? A huge moment.
And we'll remember we're all God's children.
Huge climax, high up, everyone belting way up there, especially obviously Kirsty and Scott and Mitch. The glow of the yellow coming in the background. Nice video, nice set, as I mentioned before. And also even more impactful in a way, especially with Scott there. We know how he loves to go up there. So when we heard his first solo coming in,
La luce che tu dà.
quite a contrast to... And whilst we have this idea of everyone moving up in the climax, I love how Matt then slowly kind of sinks down.
Reaching to the sky.
What a classic suspension. Then comes a belting moment between Kirsty and Mitch. Sorry, Mitch is absurd there. I use absurd in a good way. He is singing a top C, which is the wow operatic tenor moment. I call that the wow operatic tenor moment because that's what it is. It's absurd. Mitch is not singing it like an operatic tenor though. He's singing it in a completely different style, a different technique, which makes it even more ridiculous, absurd, even more wow.
Needs to find a place, guide us with your grace.
Reduced now, and then that leads into the ending, which we spoke about before. What we just heard here though, Scott and Mitch, their rich, slow vibratos working so well together. Yeah, I can certainly see why this is a fan favorite. There's just so much going on in there. Really lovely arrangement, one that I am going to listen to many more times, and every time I will just be hearing many new things for sure. That is, of course, partly due to the fact that it's more than 5-part for the majority of it. So I'm really curious to see how they do this live, having more than 5 parts in there. So that's what we're going to do now, watch a live performance and their behind the scenes video on it. So if you'd like to join me there, please head on over to the link down below in the pinned comment. And if not, thank you as always for watching. Would appreciate a like, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you next time.